Hello, I'm Yoshio Shitani, and in this video I'm going to be talking about how to read my tarot deck, the Tarot of the Divine. So these are 78 cards where each card is a different deity, folklore, myth, or fairy tale from around the world. So I do want to start off by saying there is no wrong way to read tarot cards. Just hopefully in each of these cards there is enough for you, the reader, to draw from and connect to and interpret. So tarot is about intuition. What does your gut tell you? What's the first thing you think of when you see a card? What do the colors mean to you? What does the imagery remind you of? With the Tarot of the Divine, you have another level of connection. What is your personal connection to the story on the card? But also none of these stories are simple. So I do have in the little white book inside the tarot deck, I have a sample reading for the Beauty and the Beast here. So it's got a card interpretation that I'll go over briefly here, but I'm going to do a longer one in this video. So all of these stories also will have a short retelling in the Beneath the Moon book, which is separate. But many of these stories have multiple variations that just could not fit all in this single book. So please consider this a good starting place, but go off and do a lot more research on your own. So for this video, I'm going to do a sample card reading for the full card. So this is The Little Mermaid, which is a story by Hans Christian Andersen. And it is one of the more modern stories in this tarot deck, although I think the most modern might be John Henry as the Seven of Wands. So the Fool card itself represents the beginning, a leap of faith, ignoring consequences, being hopeful, being on the pinnacle. Here I chose the Little Mermaid as she looks towards the castle, dreaming of land. So when you look at this Little Mermaid card, you might associate it with the Disney retelling of this, which is has a happily ever after ending to it. Or there are a lot of modern remakes of The Little Mermaid. There are books, movies, music videos that change the narrative and the ending. I've seen some where she's a siren intent on eating a prince's heart, which is great. But you also may be more familiar with the original telling of Hans Christian Andersen's Little Mermaid, where another girl meets the prince and the prince falls in love with her and the Little Mermaid turns into sea foam. But even here there is some variation in the story. After Hans Christian Andersen wrote the story, he felt that it ended on a really sad note, and so he later went back and changed the ending. So now, instead of turning into sea foam, she turns into an air spirit who will get into heaven if children are good enough. Some critics at the time did not like this new ending because they felt that now her soul was in purgatory and linked to the deeds of children. So they actually thought that she was more trapped now than just turning into sea foam. But additionally, there are some other interpretations. You might be inspired by the interpretation that Hans Christian Andersen was a bisexual man who fell in love with a straight man, and that the Little Mermaid is a story of unrequited love, his unrequited love. Or you can interpret this as a trans narrative here too. All of these are correct interpretations. There is nothing wrong with any of these variations. Again, if you are more inclined towards the Disney story, that's the one you grew up with, that is a perfectly fine interpretation of this. If you like the sea foam, that is also a perfectly fine interpretation. But aside from the story, let's also look at the visuals. So yellow skies are considered pretty hopeful, and red is usually a symbol of impulsiveness. Animals imply instinct. So here the fish beckon her forward. but you can see that she's also half fish, so she's still half instinct, but she is longing to become human. The water here is also a great sign of the subconscious. So here she is rising out of the subconscious. And then here's this castle, which has a castle in the air feel. It's a little hazy, kind of indistinct. Maybe it's an unrealistic dream. And it also it's atop a steep cliff with a lot of jagged rocks. Maybe her dream is difficult to achieve, but she's still looking towards it longingly. Reversed meanings too. So reverses are pretty hard. They can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. Sometimes they mean the opposite of the upright meaning. So in this case, maybe they would mean apathy, hesitation, poor decisions. I also like to think of them as another part of the story. So maybe reversed, this is the point where the Little Mermaid realizes that the prince is in love with someone else. Or maybe this is an alternate story. So maybe in this story, the Little Mermaid doesn't exchange her voice for legs. Maybe she goes home and forever wonders, what if? As you can see, there's a lot of room for interpretation, not only of the stories and of the cards, but also of the social lens in which the story was recorded and which it exists in now. A lot of these cards are still worshipped today and continue to evolve. Many are part of the diaspora experiences and mean many different things to many different people. This all might seem like a lot, but hopefully it just makes your tarot experience richer. And if a certain card speaks to you or keeps appearing in your readings, hopefully you'll take the time to learn more about the story on it. Thank you so much, and I hope that was helpful.